Good morning. Hello, welcome to the replay on these 4 tips for focus and concentration. The WRAP technique, W-R-A-P, which is spelled just like this, W-R-A-P. We're going to go through those on this live session. Thanks for joining me. And if you're watching the replay, hit that thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed to this channel, it's all about giving you every possible advantage when it comes to using your memory and being able to create things like memory palaces and other tools of mnemonics, everything from the PEG technique to the major method, the major system, and it's a really, really powerful and wonderful set of techniques that you can use. And if you're just hopping on this live now, hit the thumbs up button. Let me know where you are in the world in the chat. We've got the ability to discuss with each other on these live sessions. And of course, if you're on the replay, you can always post a comment down below. So let's talk on this live session about the WRAP technique for concentration, because we always want to start from the ground, the solid foundation of what it is that we're trying to do, and then we can build from there. And a lot of people, they want to build houses from the roof down, and then they wonder why everything collapses. So if you're interested in starting from the foundations and building up so you have a solid technique for focus and concentration that works, say hello in the chat. Let me know. Say a hallelujah or a hell yeah or let's do it or whatever it is you want to say. But let's be motivated. One of the things that gets us going is some kind of yes to things, because we want to say yes to life and make it a little dance. You know, get started with the best possible motivation. And so what we want to do in order to start with foundation is to have it written down. This is one of the biggest techniques in the world. A lot of people, they underplay it, they underprivilege writing, but we know scientifically that writing is one of the best ways to actually understand what it is that we want to do and then take action on it. And there's a lot of research about that you can look up under separate cover. But in principle, what is focus for you? What is concentration for you? Have you defined it? Have you spent any time actually putting into your own words what is the focus that you want? What is the concentration that you want? What are you looking for? If you don't do that, if you don't define it, and if you don't process it through multiple channels, then you're much, much less likely to get any kind of success from this. And it is fundamental to success that you put things into your own words and your own writing. So S. Bryce here. Cheryl from Dallas, Texas. Wow. Well, thank you for saying hello. Great to see you again. And thanks for being here. And let me know in the comments what you think about focus and concentration. And this is an opportunity to write your thoughts about focus and concentration and start defining what it means for you. Because the problem is without definition, then you are not going to be able to proceed as well as you can if you define what focus and concentration means for you. This is really, really essential. It's very important to put some definition around things. And the thing is that no one else can do it for you. No one can create definitions for you. You need to do it for yourself. So the first tip that I have for you in the WRAP technique for developing focus and concentration is to write it down. Write down your own definition. Really think it through. And how you do this is you use other W's, right? There's the who needs the focus and concentration. When do you need the focus and concentration? How do you need focus and concentration? Where do you need focus and concentration? What for do you need focus and concentration? Use those as your guide for writing this out, and you're going to find that your understanding of what focus and concentration actually means is, first of all, has multiple definitions, and it has multiple areas in which it may need to be different. And you can then focus on the other parts of the WRAP technique to really, really start to define out how that focus and concentration are going to work for you. So don't skip this step. One of the defining and definitive factors of people who succeed and those who do not is that the people who succeed, they actually hear something like an exercise and then they go and complete it. So when you find some time, or right now in the comments, what is focus and concentration for you? Define it. Write it down. This is the first step of the WRAP technique. Don't save it for as data for later, because we know, and we talked about this on the previous live session, that there is the speed of implementation rule. Oh, that sounds good, and then you don't take action on it. Well, within a short period of time, you're really decreasing the possibility that you're going to take action on things. The longer you wait to take action on something like an exercise that's suggested to you, the less likely you're going to do it, and therefore the less likely you're actually going to get the results from it. So how does that sound to everybody? Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. If you're just joining us on this live, say hello in the comments. Let me know where you are in the world. And if you're watching the replay, post down below. What is focus and concentration for you? And use this. Where do you need focus and concentration? For what? And how do you need it? And even just this who you are. Who are you? Like, what is your role? Are you a student? Are you a doctor? Are you a parent? And when specifically do you need focus and concentration, and what kinds of focus and concentration do you need in those different contexts? This is so important. It gives you such a strong foundation for then doing the next step of the R.A.P technique. And this is really important because the next step is, geez, you guys are really silent today. No one's saying hello. Are you interested in this or not? Because we don't have to we don't have to continue if you're not engaged. Seeing some thumbs up coming, but really interested in engaging. That's what these lives are for. So let me know where you are in the world and what you're doing, what you're thinking, and what you think about focus. So research is the next step, and that is the R in our R.A.P technique. Research is really super important because not all focus and concentration techniques that we'll talk about are equally useful, or we'll talk about if you're interested in them. Not seeing too much interest today, guys. So it's really fundamental that you do research. So the kinds of focus and concentration techniques that apply to being in a certain setting, like being a doctor or being a lawyer or being a parent, those can be different things where you need to focus differently. So you might need patience, for example, when you're in a parental setting that is not the same as the focus and patience that you need with clients or something like that. Jennifer's here. Common Sense is here. Hello. Thanks for saying hello. Great to see you. And we're talking about focus and concentration and really hoping to get the foundations built for us so that we're able to actually get focus and concentration working for us. And it's super important to define what it is and then do some research. So one of the things that I've been doing lately, and I don't know why I got pegged by people, but they are pegging me on Quora and asking me to answer particular questions. And you can tell that the people are not really taking time to think about the questions that they're posting, and they're not doing any research. So this is a really important thing, is that you do some research when you want results from the world and try and think of things through from the foundation. Philip's here. Hi, Anthony. Philip from Chicago. Thanks for saying hello, Philip. Appreciate that. What else do we got here? Cheryl says, focus for me is the ability to keep my mind from wandering when I want to retain information. Excellent. So this is really important. Now we've got something that we can work with. We've got a need. We can now start to create strategy around it. And so when you get to the research stage, Cheryl, you can put in mind wandering, right? And one of the things that's really important about mind wandering is that you may find that mind wandering is good in some contexts. In fact, it's very healthy, and it is more and more becoming an area of scientific research in terms of its benefits rather than its deficits. So it may be that you want to explore and find for yourself a kind of context in which mind wandering is very good, set time aside for it, and then seek out through the first process of the R.A.P technique that we talked about when exactly you need focus and concentration, when exactly mind wandering is inappropriate, and what kinds of strategies will be most appropriate for it. So you can feel free to put in some more context, or just use what we've already talked about to help yourself generate more context for yourself, because this is going to really help you get better strategies out of that. Much better strategies, I should say, because the definitions will guide your research and you'll find better techniques in it And back to the Quora thing, people are just pumping out questions where they haven't really done anything on their own to try and answer it. And that is one of the best ways to get any question answered intelligently, is to go through the question as much as you can on your own and then include that information in your question. So that's part of the research stage, actually. Part of the research stage is asking questions, but not just handout questions, not just holding your hand out and saying, well, please, what's the best concentration or focus exercise for me? No, what you want to do, formulate it more, is something like, I really need to focus better, but I have done some research on mind wandering, and I discovered that there's a scientific body of evidence that talks about the benefit of mind wandering, but that doesn't really help me in my situation where I am a teacher and I find my mind wandering when I'm marking student papers or whatever. And so then you take that data, include it in a question that you might ask, and you're instantly already much more primed and priming the person you're asking the question for to give you a better answer, a more detailed answer, because there's story around it, there's context around it, and you yourself know that story. So to review, the R.A.P technique starts with writing down what focus and concentration means for you, and then doing some research around it, guided by that. And then part of research is asking questions, but don't ask questions until you've done some research and tried to answer the questions as much as you can on your own. And if you can name names in your question, that's even better, because then you're creating common frames of reference, and that person asking the question can either go and look at that material themselves and see for themselves what might be covered there, or they can say, oh yeah, I did read that book. Did you check out the chapter or the book that he references or the article that's referenced, or whatever the case may be? This is somehow getting lost on the internet, and it's just basic common sense of how we get anything done in terms of creating knowledge. So, we want to return to that as quickly as possible and really understand that it's so good for our brain to engage things from the basic foundations and then build from the ground up. So that's the research stage. And part of research too is also implementation. So we want to try the different things that we discover. So if you were to encounter the suggestion that certain breathing exercises might help you with mind wandering during situations in which mind wandering is not attractive to you, if that were to be the case, then what you would do is actually try implementing the suggestions that you find and do it for a certain period of time to really, really dive deep into that and see what works for you, and then come back and be able to describe the process. That's another part of asking better questions during research, is to give a description of what you've tried, how that you've tried it, the steps that you took based on what recommendations, which you mention specifically, which is another thing that I find so lacking in Quora. It's specific reference to people. Today I was tagged on a question about the people who are comparing the human brain to computers and so forth, and the person used some fancy terminology but didn't refer to who is using this fancy terminology. There's so many people who use that term in so many different ways, so it's impossible to answer the question. And if you look at the other answers, it's, what, why are these people answering? They should be asking more questions and trying to figure out who is it that is using the language that this person used, the terminology. So very, very powerful to do that. If you're hopping on this live, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, and let me know about what's going on with your focus and concentration. And we'll continue with the R.A.P technique, because the A is to associate. And you want to associate the different techniques with the different contexts that these focus and concentration techniques that you discover are appropriate for. So there are focus and concentration techniques that may be appropriate for memorizing a deck of cards, and then you associate them with that activity. There may be other ones that are appropriate to memorizing foreign language vocabulary, and then you associate to those things. And there may be yet other ones that are for math or whatever, and you then associate them. And also, to remember to do them, you make certain associations. So some of the techniques that we can talk about later, I have very, very carefully associated with locations. These are the locations in which they are done, and I associate them by creating markers. So that may be a journal that is a marker that reminds me to do a focus and concentration exercise using a journal in a particular space that I see every day. It may be that there's a meditation mat in a particular place to remind me to actually associate the focus and concentration exercises with that particular location, see it and do it, right? So we want to associate the activity for which we need the focus and concentration exercises with the areas in which that we're actually engaged in those learning activities or whatever the activities are. If you need them in your office, for example, you can associate them with the door frame, something like that. And you may do it with an actual marker, a visual marker that you see, and it reminds you, oh yeah, I have this little focus and concentration technique, and I use it when I go through the door, and you can touch it, or whatever the case is, in order to help ensure that you actually do it, that you actually follow through. This is really, really powerful to be able to do. So you want to associate. And the other level of association, if you need to memorize the steps or different terminology around it, is of course to use memory techniques. So association is the A part of this, and that's fantastic to be able to use association. Is how the brain learns. It's what the brain loves to do, is to make associations. It's how we learn and what we need to do to learn, and absolutely fantastic for the purposes of learning. And I really enjoy making associations as often as possible. And the important thing too is to make multiple associations if you can, and just continue revisiting strong associations and making them stronger with more levels of association. So does that make sense to everybody? Is it interesting and useful for you? I find this stuff to be the most powerful, the meta aspects of things, really understanding the thinking behind processes and having them structured so that we can move forward on strong foundations, so that the techniques actually serve at a higher level. Because techniques are just techniques, but if they're not precision matched to the outcomes that we want, they don't work as well as they could. So this is really powerful and important. And the last thing, the P in our R.A.P technique, is to practice, of course. So when we discover techniques, a lot of people, they are like 1% people. They will try one time and then they will stop. And quick victories are important in life. They do spike certain brain chemicals and so forth, but very few things actually work just the first time, just the way you would like them to. So you got to be a 99% person who's just like going to go as many times as you possibly can, and really do it 100 times if that's what it takes in order to really understand a particular technique. And that's the definitive difference between experts and non-experts, is that they show up, they make things work, they figure it out, they explore it from different angles, they try it in different locations, they go to it again and again and again and really empty it of all of its wealth and value. And if you do the research right, you're going to start already stronger, because you're going to have found things that are much better to try in the first place. You're going to have found all kinds of things that optimize your starting point if you do the actual research, which involves going all the way through books and articles and then implementing the techniques and going through them, trying them, and then associating in the ways that we talked, so that you're much more likely to go through them, and then to continue to practice, and you're able to completely absorb so much value from that. So repetition is something we want to minimize in memory techniques, but when it comes to the actual use of techniques, we want to maximize exposure and repetition in order to get to expert levels with them, or even if we're not trying to be experts with things, to actually have skill with particular techniques. Because this is ultimately the whole issue here, is that focus and concentration is a skill. It is not something that is necessarily given to us by birth, although we can find in our lives areas where we are naturally focused and able to concentrate. And that is absolutely fantastic to have that in life. And that's one of the things that we do in the writing process. We try and discover where are we already naturally focused and concentrating, and how is that working for us, and what in it is working for us already. You can go back again and again and again to the foundations, and that's part of practice, is going back to the foundations, writing again and again and again, and enabling yourself to find more in the initial stage. And you will find more the more you repeat that. And by the way, this RAP technique works for a lot of things. It's not just for finding good focus and concentration, it's good for finding anything. So if you want to really get the most out of the practice that you ultimately need to do and return to in order to see it from different angles, see it in different contexts, and develop that ability to really, really shine in any particular area of skill, then you're going to have a amazing, amazing time as a result, because you have done this, and then you go back to the original part of the RAP technique and you write some more, and you also journal what it is that you're doing in order to really have some cognitive distance from it and some ability to see it in a way that is somewhat at a distance, at a remove, and you can do a clinical analysis, see how you're going to improve it, and really, really be a keen observer of the process. And so this really, really returns right back to where we started with the W in RAP, which is to write things down, get it out of your head, get all the benefits of the brain chemicals that come into play and are in use when you're using your writing abilities. Writing, of course, can be in pencil or pen, or even typing is fine. And you can add bonus features like discussing with others, and uh, add other elements of expression to that, mind mapping and all kinds of different things that may be involved, like making videos or blogging or sending out tweets or whatever it is that you do, but put it into words so that it's externalized from your brain. Things that are externalized out into the world, they then take on a different character. They change the chemicals in your brain, and then you begin to see them from greater perspective. So that is the RAP technique for finding focus and more clarity and concentration from the ground up, starting with the foundations and having a wonderful, wonderful ability to find the right focus and concentration techniques rather than just random things to try. Because there are techniques that are more right to your context, and they're going to help you a great deal more if you start from that basis. So I haven't seen any more discussion posts here in the chat. So if you would like to learn some specific focus and concentration techniques, let me know. Hit me up with a chat there. If you're just joining, say hello in the discussion. Hit that thumbs up, and let's maybe talk about some actual focus and concentration techniques that you can try, understanding that the strength of those techniques will be based on what you do and how you do it in your own self-discovery process of what exactly you need the techniques for. So Cheryl says, I would like to. Please do let me know what it is that you, more specifics about what you have the mind wandering for, so that we can get some more specificity around this, and we can proceed from there. For myself, some of the things that I need concentration and focus for are for writing, for example, being able to write for long stretches of time. And one of the best focus and concentration exercises for that is progressive muscle relaxation, right? So being really, really relaxed. Because when you're writing, one of the things that happens is your shoulder muscles are involved, and your back is involved depending on your posture. And in order to concentrate for longer periods of time, then you want to have very, very strong awareness of your body. So you start with your body and you make it really relaxed. Now that's going to apply to just about everything, but so many people don't do it, and they just don't realize it. But if you look into how to have focus and concentration in writing, you should find relatively quickly someone explaining to you that the body matters, the comfort of the body matters. And so progressive muscle relaxation enables you to really feel all the way through all your muscles and really relax them so that when you're writing, your posture is better, which enables you to focus and concentrate better. The body is everything. It's one of the hugest foundations of them all, and really super powerful. And you really should start every day with that. We can dive, if you're interested, and I hear from you that you're interested. We'll talk about how progressive muscle relaxation works. Philip says, I would like to review the materials I learned by going through the memory palace in my mind while driving, cooking. Sometimes while driving, it is difficult to focus on the road. Do I have any comments? Well, Philip, that's a great question, and I'm guilty of going through memory palaces while driving, but I don't recommend it. Here's why. You're driving, right? So you're looking at one location and you're thinking about other locations and material that's encoding in there. And I'm really not sure that imagining other things than driving is a great policy. Now we just do it automatically. We go into mind wandering, and the next thing you know, we've driven kilometers sometimes, and then we're like, oh, where did half the city go, right? But to deliberately concentrate on something else while you're driving, that's basically a crime against humanity. So please don't do that. You really want to drive and focus on driving. And progressive muscle relaxation is a great thing to do before you get into a car. Being relaxed before you drive is really, really a great policy. And I highly recommend that for focus on driving, and just focus on driving. Audiobooks and all that sort of stuff. I've listened to hundreds, if not thousands, of audiobooks while driving, and or at least spent hundreds of thousands of hours listening to them while driving. And that in and of itself seems to be okay, but I drove in Germany on the Autobahn. I've been back and forth Germany so many times you have no idea. When I lived in Berlin and drove to Saarbrücken to teach there, man, it's amazing that I never ever once had any kind of accident, but I did have some near misses, and I attribute that to just not focusing on the road and being more involved in mental things. And listening to audiobooks, you can memorize things on the fly, but then you're focusing on creating, you're doing the elaborative encoding to make the magnetic imagery, and you're associating it with memory palaces. So the best thing really is not to do it at all, but to keep things more close to home, if you are going to do it, and again, I don't recommend doing it, then use the car as the memory palace. And even then, it's just not a good policy. Don't memorize and drive. Jennifer says, my issue is I run out of steam during classes where I need to focus, especially if active thinking. How to be able to focus longer? Well, that's good, Jennifer. The first thing I would say is, what is steam? Like, you're using a metaphor there, so what does it mean? We got to question our metaphors. One of the best things to do is question our metaphors, because I don't know exactly what that means, to run out of steam. Does that mean that you go into a setting and you have to heat yourself up and turn on the fire and generate the steam first, and then that steam is coming out? Or does it mean that you don't have any steam in the first place and you're just going on what you got when you enter the lecture hall? I think that's a really important set of questions to ask. What is your state when you enter the lecture hall in the first place? Are you relaxed? Are you well fed? Have you had enough water? Are you hydrated? Are you well rested? Get more into how you enter the room. This is really, really important. I talked earlier on this live about associating certain things with the doors of buildings that you might go into, and you want to think of for yourself what that is. But when I used to have lectures that I had to attend that I didn't particularly like, and I'm thinking of one right now in particular that I just had to get through in order to get the grade and so forth, I associated with the door a particular symbol of Ganesh, and I just thought, and I'm not a religious or spiritual person or anything like that. And to tell you the truth, I don't know that much of Ganesh, but it's just a symbol of relaxation, of memory, and just being cool. Always be cool, right? ABC. Always be cool. And it would just remind me that this is just a short period of time to be there and just touch the door frame going in and set the context. Set the context to be relaxed and not to let anything bother me during that time. Because we choose a lot of or we may not choose the chemical states that we go into, but we choose how we deal with them, or at least we have the opportunity to intervene through self-observation and through asking things. And one of the things that we can do is ask about our metaphors, and that's why I'm asking about your metaphor. Think about what that means when you say, I run out of steam, right? This is going to be very helpful. I'm confident. If you catch yourself in your metaphors, understand that metaphors don't necessarily point where we think they do, then you can find many, many clues that will lead you to firmer foundations, and then you can build from there. The R.A.P technique will help you with that. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question. And if you want to be able to focus longer and think longer, then concentrate on being able to focus longer. So if you're going into lecture halls and you have to sit through long lectures, how could you practice focusing on lectures longer? Well, let's take the example again of lectures you don't particularly enjoy, you don't want to sit through, but you need to be practiced on focusing on them longer. Well, first of all, I would suggest go to Magnetic Memory Method and search up the episode of the podcast on note taking. There's a number of strategies that you can use that will help with this, but also just practice attending lectures that you actually enjoy and notice in yourself what is it that you enjoy about those particular lectures. And one of the things that you'll discover is that you may feel physically comfortable. You may feel more relaxed. Some people may set you at ease. So there's some research in the science of how that professors who tell jokes are much more likely to get people engaged and so forth. These days it's getting dangerous to tell jokes, but with the political correctness thing. But apparently there's research around that, and that has to do with brain chemicals and so forth. And other days you might hit a professor on a day when they're a bit grouchy and grumpy, and you know, even I've had that for sure. And you just be aware that how that they are, what their mood is, what their tone is like, is affecting your tone. It's affecting everything. And when you're aware of that, you don't have to be as affected by it. And so when you're listening to lectures or replays or whatever it is, like Rick Roderick is a great professor to watch. And if you can watch as many of his YouTube lectures as possible, when he made them, the course was called the Teaching Company, or TTC. Now it's called the Great Courses. Rick Roderick is fascinating, and you can tell when he's in a bad mood, and he just is amazing to listen to. And then that's how I practiced a lot of sitting through long real life lectures. And I've sat through 3-hour sessions with Slavoj Žižek at EGS in Switzerland, and they're long, and it can be a little bit hard to concentrate on him because he's all over the place a lot of the time. Anybody here know Slavoj Žižek? Let me know in the comments if you know that guy. He was quite fascinating to have as a professor. And if you're just joining us on the live, let me know where you are, talking about focus and concentration techniques. You might want to check the replay because we went through the R.A.P. And if you're not subscribed, by the way, hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell icon. That'll let you know when we go live the next time. And we're now just in a Q&A session here. And Jennifer says, I'm actively paying attention and figuring things out, but I get tired, like I feel I'm done. I really do love most of them. I love the jokes. Funny lectures are the best. Yeah, I wish I was a funnier guy, but I'm not. I'm not a naturally gifted comedian, and there's not a whole lot of jokes about memory, to be told. Although I have thought about, coming up with jokes about memory, and none come to mind, really. You ever met a memory palace you didn't like, or 3 memory palaces walking a bar? I don't know. I wouldn't know where to begin with that. But yeah, I mean, if you're feeling like you're getting tired and so forth, here's a possible tip for you. I don't know, but just get up and go for a short walk, and come back. Walk around, get some fresh air, get some water, and come back. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if you use some of the techniques that I talk about, or one in particular, on the podcast about note-taking. So I'll leave you to go and check that out. Search Magnetic Memory Method and note-taking, and you'll find that there. And it's a method that lets you leave a lecture for half an hour and come back and not miss a thing. And most people can do it. So give that a try. And Jennifer says, I'm going to check it. Thank you, Jennifer. I think you're going to really like it because there's a lot of note taking techniques there that I think you'll find useful. And again, if you like online lectures, just practice. Practice listening to lectures and extending your concentration. And then maybe, I haven't done this myself, but maybe just time yourself and think something along the lines of something that's taught in meditation, which is, what's the next thought that's going to interrupt me? What's the next thought that's going to interrupt my train of focus as I settle down to focus? And that's something that Eckhart Tolle mentions in The Power of Now. He says one great meditation technique is to be like the cat sitting at the mouse hole and thinking, when's that mouse going to come out next? Which he is referring to thoughts. What's the next thought that I'm going to think? And if you hold that thought in mind, what's the next thought that I'm going to think, you'll extend your ability to basically hold on to the observation of how your mind works. And then if you practice it, which is the P in our R.A.P technique, if you practice it over time, what's going to end up happening is that your ability to watch that mouse hole, watching for the next mouse that comes out, or watch your thoughts and just look for when the next thought is going to come without having any thoughts, you're going to be able to extend that. And the same thing would apply to being in a lecture hall and just asking yourself, what's the next thing that's going to interrupt my focus? And in your case, you're talking about energy and getting tired. Think about, when exactly am I going to start to feel tired? And observe it. People can pay attention to more than one thing at once. Multitasking is a bit of a problem in certain contexts, but there are other contexts where multitasking is not a problem, such as, when you're hearing a foreign language phrase and you're eating dinner and you use memory techniques. I do this at dinner all the time with April. I'll ask her something in Chinese. Like last night, I said, "Chongwen, what's the difference?" 怎么说? And she told me how to say what's the difference in Chinese, which was, and now I'm going to try and do a couple things at once, which is I'm going to revisit those mnemonics and see if I can get this right. But it was yo shen ma bu yi yong, like that. And I'm just now thinking in my mind, there was yo-yo, there's Shania Twain on a horse, which is the signature I use for the magnetic imagery that I use for Shenma all the time. And then there was, for Boo is always one of those ghosts from Pac-Man. And then there was Yi Yong, and there's just other stuff, but it doesn't matter. But the whole point is that should be accurate. That should be accurate. And I memorized that while I'm chewing. And we had music on and so on. And then, it's just a matter of revisiting it a sufficient number of times and practicing it, getting into my mouth, being willing to make the mistake like I just did now. Maybe you know Chinese and you'll be like, hey, loser, you didn't get that right. My tones are probably not exactly correct. In fact, I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't be, but that's because I haven't actually asked her yet. What are the tones, gotten the numbers, then use the major method to associate with it. But I like to start from the foundations, just get the words right in the right order, and then work on the pronunciation later, which is something that just happens over time naturally, especially when you hear it more and more and more, and it's really great. So we can process things at multiple times, so you could pay attention to a professor and ask yourself, when am I going to start feeling tired? Then capture it and say, whoa, what does that feel like? What is it coming from? Is it coming from the fact that I've just been sitting here for so long, or is it because I'm now getting thirsty? Maybe I need a little bit of a walk and then come back. So I hope that helps. And Danny's here. Hi from London. I want more concentration when I play chess. I need to work harder at the board and have discipline to keep thinking and not switch off, for example, when it's my opponent's move. Yeah, I've been wishing to find a chess player so I could get into chess. I might see if there's a chess club here in Brisbane. My dentist has all these chess magazines, so he may be a player, and I'll maybe ask him what's going on in Brisbane with that. So concentration when you play chess. Well, one of the things is when you want to concentrate in the field, practice being concentrated by yourself. So things like progressive muscle relaxation, breathing exercises, and really, really focusing on the state of your body when you're by yourself, and then preparing to be in that same state when you're then in the actual situation, I think would be really, really great. And there's that. I mean, if you're competing, things like temperature, being well rested, being hydrated, thinking about what you ate in the last 72 hours, not not just that morning, but in the last 72 hours can be very, very important for optimizing performance in basically any performance-based thing. A lot of people don't know this, but it takes at least 72 hours, if not longer for some people, for foods to have their effects. Um, and I've done stuff with the food grid for that, and there's just so many variables with food that can throw us from our game that we're not even aware of. Many, many variables, but it's been a long time since I played chess, and so I don't have any particular things, but I would assume that is the case there. Then if you wanted to use memory techniques in that context, if you have a major method for, or something along the lines of the major method for memorizing different parts of the board and so forth, then obviously relaxation is going to be a key part of that, because I always associate relaxation with memory. It's just a key part of it. It's really, really important to be relaxed, to be calm, to be flexible, to allow your creative mind to come up and have really intense and focus, like just focus and clarity that's coming from the body. It's coming from the chemical states of the body. And so that's super powerful for all people involved. And just self-observation, self-awareness, and also being able to turn off self-observation and awareness when it gets critical. So, you know, when you're doing things like I'm doing now, you're juggling a lot of things, and if I were critical of myself at every little fumble that I made, or if I showed annoyance and I'm like, oh, you just seemed like you were annoyed, and now blah blah blah, like you get this inner dialogue that's going on, and you have to just acknowledge it and put it aside. And one of the ways to develop focus and concentration is to start labeling the things that are going on in your mind. If you can do that, then you're able to just put them aside. You're able to actually let them run. Oh, that's you again. Okay, well, we know what you are, so just, sit in your corner and do your thing, which happens every time that I do a YouTube live. There's just some little nattering thing. Da, 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 oh, that was stupid, or blah, 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 blah. And, you just acknowledge it when it comes, and just say, okay, there's your corner over there. And really powerful. So, again, I would just extend wanting to be focused in chess and in chess matches to all of life, because all of life is sort of like chess, or it bears parallels to chess. Everything you're doing is a move that is going to have some sort of response or lack of response potentially, but that is in and of itself very telling when there's a lack of response. Very keen to that. Speaking of response, if you're hopping on this live and you haven't hit that thumbs up button, hit thumbs up. Let me know if you're engaged. We're talking about R.W.A.P, which is the R.A.P technique, which you may want to go back to the beginning of this and watch the replay if you missed it. And basically, one of the things that we're talking about is that it doesn't we can talk about specific focus and concentration techniques, and we will if you have questions about specific ones. But really what matters is going from the foundations up, and some of the foundational things that you can do is get very, very clear about the situations in which you need focus and concentration, and put some clarity around it by writing. I'm pouring some water here in case you get a weird sound effect that doesn't quite sound right. Um, this is Bai Kai Shui, which is the Chinese word for water that has been warmed up. So very good to keep your throat nice and liquid and loose. So let me know if you have any more questions around this, but to rehearse, the R.A.P technique involves writing, getting clarity about when, where, how, why, for what you need focus and concentration, so that you can do really, really good research for focus and concentration tips that apply to the where, what, why, when, and how that you need them. And you might also think about who. What role are you playing? Who are you when you need focus and concentration in those situations? Then the research stage, of course, also involves actually trying things that you found, collecting some data around it. There's nothing worse than, hearing about a new breathing technique and then wanting to know more about it. And then you're like, it was prana, what? And then you don't know it. So one of the things you can do way better than anything on the computer, in my not so humble opinion, is index cards. So you can write this down, and you can have a couple of them that are just for your breathing research and your focus research and your concentration research, and put them in a shoebox or something, and you'll be able to revert back to them very, very easily. And it's just really, really powerful. It lends itself to clutter. I realize it's not as sexy as perhaps computers can be, but computers just hide clutter in screens in many cases. And I may be revealing my own poor computer habits, but I really, really like to have things externalized and fileable in a way that the orders can be changed, and something physical and tactile that is outside of the brain and outside of the external brain of the computer. And when you have your research in place, then you can go and do much more better investigations of the tactics that you're going to do. And then, as I suggested, you want to associate areas of the world with the techniques that you're going to try for focus and concentration. And then you want to practice. And you want to practice in a dedicated manner, because if you're not practicing in a dedicated manner, then you're not going to get the results, because developing focus and concentration is a skill. And you get that skill by showing up to the techniques that enable you to experience focus and concentration. And one of the cool things about meditation is that it's really about 4 to 6 months of basically daily meditation before you really start to feel just how deep the ocean of calm gets. And then it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. This may be because of a transition in brain processing that comes, where a lot of the processing that happens here starts to move over here. And that's part of it, because this is a lot of verbal stuff, and then here is really nonverbal processing. So something to consider. You got to put in your due time with meditation. And meditation is ultimately probably the greatest focus and concentration technique there is. And so some best practices around meditation, especially when you're beginning, is make sure you show up to it at least 4 times a week. This is indicated in a lot of the research. I think you should go for every day, 4 days a week minimum, though. Doesn't have to be 45-minute power sessions. It doesn't have to be an hour. A lot of people argue about this, and they will put a specific minute. And if you're not even relaxed enough after 15 minutes to possibly crack the surface, blah 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 blah. They don't know. They don't know you, so you got to find you in the process. And it can be 15 minutes. I rarely meditate for longer than 15 minutes, although I would say over the course of a day, I probably meditate for 90 minutes a day, just in 15-minute sessions with different approaches to meditation. And one thing to understand is that there may be gender differences to how that people receive meditation practices. So there are movement meditation exercises that are just as powerful as sitting just to sit, or sitting to breathe, and so forth. And this is according to Gary Weber, who wrote Happiness Beyond Thought, and it's a very, very compelling set of data that he points to on his blog, which is also called Happiness Beyond Thought, where they did some research on who responds best to movement-based exercises, and that data is suggesting that men do better with this. And when I saw that, I thought, well, let me try, because I never really was interested in yoga or stretching or anything like that. But when I did it, and did it over a period of time, actually the change was felt pretty quickly. But then again, it's that thing where you just don't realize just how deep this is going to go until after several weeks, after several months. And this is not self-delusion or anything like that. There really are depths to experience that you only get to experience if you put in the time with the techniques. So that's the practice part. That's the P of R.A.P. And I really, really hope that you give the things that you do their due time, their process, because without doing that, you don't get results. It's just as simple as that. And it's an unfortunate truth that a lot of people will never show up sufficiently enough and consistently enough in order to get those things. And I want you to be the one who escapes that, who enters, the percent of tries after that first try. and then enters it again and again and again and again, because the benefits for you are so extraordinary. And if you aren't convinced, please let me know what you think might convince you, because I'll try my best to convince you to try this, because it's really that powerful and life-saving, really. Jaideep's here. Hi, Jaideep. Thanks for saying hello. Great to see you as always, although we often miss each other. And by the way, if you're watching the replay, say hello, as Jaideep does often, in the comments below. Hit that thumbs up. Let me know if you are engaged. And, well, it might be time to make a wrap on this, because I don't see any more questions coming in here. But Jaideep's here, so we'll wait a minute. Maybe he has something that he would like to contribute or say. What are you doing with your focus and your concentration? And we can open up also to any general memory improvement questions if you like. Happy to do that. And by the way, there's a memory training special this month at Magnetic Memory Method, which you can go and have a look at magneticmemorymethod.com/WRAP, which I put together as part of today's session, which I hope you enjoy that. And I always like putting together extra things. And if you happen to take that offer, if you mention that you watch today's live, I will send you my Memory Palace Meditation Maximizer recordings. And there's 3 of them, and well, they're divided into versions. So there's versions without background sound and versions with background sound. So you get a number of options there. And essentially what they are guided meditations through Memory Palace creation, through focus and concentration, and focusing on the action of creating and using memory palaces in a guided meditation format. So if you happen to go to magneticmemorymethod.com/WRAP and take me up on that offer, then I will send those to you. Jaideep says, I've gone through all. Okay, great. I hope that you found them useful. Linking meditation with Memory Palace creation and use is very, very powerful. It ultimately is not meditating, because meditation technically is experiencing what you might call persistent non-symbolic experience, or PNSE. But that doesn't mean that in a state of deep relaxation you can't jump from persistent non-symbolic experience to using memory palaces or even creating them. Shaideep says, I'm using them in my other work. Okay, that's fantastic too. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I love guided meditations, and they're a real treat to go through, especially from an experienced meditator. And there's many of them. There's so many out there, but this one I don't think there are any that are geared towards the creativity that's needed for memory techniques, or geared towards the actual development of your spatial memory and mental manipulation of space and mental navigation. So I created those, and there's been just great results from them, and I hope that you give them a try. I see Julie's here, and hello, Julie. Always great to see you. Just saw you were on. We'll listen when you post this. Hi from California. Well, hello. I always love seeing you. Thanks for saying hello. Philip says, in a 3-hour personal study time, how many subjects can I learn? Totally different or similar topics? Philip, I really don't know. I'm not sure that you need to it's not a thing that someone can answer for you. It's a thing you need to experience by actually trying. So how many can you learn in that period of time? That's something for you to report on rather than be told by someone else. So if you give yourself some structured goals with milestones, and you say, okay, I got 3 hours, I'm going to see what I can do and still get a result out of it. To give you an example really of some things that I've done, I'll play around with different languages, or when I've tried to learn or worked on learning more than one language at a time, I'll do something like, okay, I got 45 minutes, I'm going to do 15 minutes on language 1, 15 minutes on language 2, and 15 minutes on language 3, and then see what the results are using a memory journal and some basic testing. And then you can push the limits and see what's happening. What are the actual results? So, what are the results basically for um, retention, for duration of retention, and then development of fluency? Now, what fluency means is totally up to you also. You've got to put your own definition on what fluency is. You can spend a lot of time focusing and concentrating on someone else's definition of fluency, or you can do your own, right? And fluency in a language, fluency in a topic, and so forth. So I found that doing three languages never leads to a significant boost in fluency in any of them, because the debt of developing fluency as I define it is to actually read, write, speak, and listen in the language a sufficient amount of time so that it actually serves memory, and memory serves the reading, writing, listening, and speaking process. So this is really important. And the more languages you put on that, the less likely you're going to show up a sufficient amount of time to do that. And that's just as simple as that. So you need to decide, you need to figure out and put some really specific guidelines. And you know what? R.A.P will help you do that, because R.A.P applies to all kinds of things. So if you want to know how many language or how many topics you can spend in 3 hours, well, write them down. Write how many topics you want to try. Do some research around what you're going to do in those 3 hours. Associate the places that you're going to do it and the techniques that you're going to use with those places and with the techniques that you're going to try, and then practice. It's as simple as that. That's how you start from the foundations and you build up. And that is that. Common Sense asks, do I do private classes? Thank you for that question, and I'm delighted and honored that you'd be interested. Please email me about that. Um, so that may be possible, but we would want to have a correspondence about that. Margaret says, "Hi Anthony, apologize I missed the beginning. How do we get the guided meditation audios?" Those are a special bonus just for people who are on this live. And you go to magneticmemorymethod.com/rap. If you're interested in this particular offer, then we'll get them to you. But let me know that you saw this live. So that's magneticmemorymethod.com/rap. The link should be in the description below as well, so you can just click it rather than having to type it. Although typing is still a thing, and I like typing. So magneticmemorymethod.com/rap. And again, R.A.P is a very powerful technique. I hope that if you missed the beginning, you'll go back and watch the replay, understand it, understand how powerful it is, and apply it to everything that you do, really, because it applies to everything that you do, and you'll get much better results. Linda says, "Hi Anthony, you're a legend." You're great, bless you. I thought that was enjoy, really. I'm not sure what that last sentence is, but I always love what you do with language, Linda. It really looks beautiful with all those emoticons. Makes me smile, brings on a good mood, and I love language play in general. Jaideep says, "Sir, do you know?" Well, please first, I appreciate the sir, but if you got to be formal, then doctor will do. But just Anthony is fine. Do you know about speed reading? Yes, I do know about speed reading, and what more do you want to know about speed reading that I know about? Let me know. Give me more to chew on when it comes to speed reading, and then maybe I can answer it more specifically. Generally, speed reading is something that I refer people to my good friend Jonathan Levy to do, because he has great training on it, and it's realistic training grounded in reality, and I have my own version of speed reading that's quite different, and I don't call it speed reading at all. And it's in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass, which of course there is a special on right now at magneticmemorymethod.com/rap, W.R.A.P, to go with today's theme, which is W.R.A.P, rap, that technique. And the special bonus, if you mention that you were on this live, are my 3 meditation Memory Palace Maximizer MP3s. They're guided meditations through developing more focus and concentration with memory techniques. And why is that important? Well, until that I created these meditation recordings, which have been really helping people, there was no way for people to actually have a guided meditation process through something that can't be seen. The problem with teaching memory techniques is you can't show it to you. You have to feel it, you have to experience it, you have to do it. And you can get all the mnemonic examples under the sun. You need to do it inside of your own brain. And so, for people who are particularly audio oriented, having a voice in your ears walking you through the development of spatial memory and the boosting of your creativity, regardless of what your preferred modes are. Like if you're more visual than you are auditory, well, yes, we go through an auditory channel, but you're going to learn to be more visual. You're going to learn to be more um, learn to be more kinesthetic. You're going to learn to be more olfactory and gustatory and also conceptual. So wherever you are, we're going to use the audio channels to supplement the video training, the PDF training, the reading that we do in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. But you're going to be able to put something in your ears through a guided meditation that brings breathing into the mix rather than a video saying, hey, here's how you breathe. This is actually now something where you're guided through it in a meditation or a guided meditation format, and then you can go off and do it on your own. And the idea is to make your memory practice a lot better because, it's like the Matrix, right? You can't know the Matrix unless you go through the process. You take the pill and away you go, right? And so this is another way of getting people into the training and really, really helping them dive into it. And so mention that you saw this live video. Go and get W.R.A.P, and we'll check out all the details, and yeah, you'll get those audio recordings, and I think you'll find them fantastic. Philip says, thank you so much for answering my questions and your time. I learned so much from your course. Your techniques are great and really help. Well, thank you for saying that, Philip. I really appreciate it, and do give these things a try. That's ultimately all that we can do, right? You always got to meet the teacher halfway. This is the fundamental law of pedagogy, of education. Teaching it requires the student, the participation of the student. And I am this way myself all the time, all the time. And that's why I said it at the beginning. One of the most important things to do is when you hear something, to go and take action on it and implement as soon as possible, because the speed of implementation rule tells us that the longer time passes before you take action on a suggestion, the less likely you are to do it. And that's why speed of implementation is so important. Oh, write down what focus and concentration means for me. The people who succeed are the ones who say, yes, I'm going to write down what focus and concentration means for me. Better yet, they typed it into the chat box, and you may have noticed a little bit of dismay and frustration when I saw, oh, so few people are participating, which is odd because I did a survey to see what YouTube Live people wanted next, and they overwhelmingly said they wanted this one. And so anyway, I noticed in my mind, oh, well, and then I let that get a little bit distracting for a second, and then I returned to my body and focused and concentrated and so forth. But really, the people who are going to succeed, they're going to hear that suggestion, and then they're going to go and they're going to take it, and then they're going to run with the research, and then they're going to run with the association part of W.R.A.P, and then they're going to run with the practice. It's just the universal rule, because speed of implementation tells us the longer you wait after hearing a suggestion, the less likely you are to do it, ever. There's so many things in the world. So the basic suggestion here doesn't necessarily have to do with what we're talking about today, but just in life in general, is when something makes sense to you and it's something you think, yes, that's for me, go and do it as soon as possible. Implement, and you'll get so many better results out of life. Because don't just be tickled and say, oh, well, that's a good idea. Go and follow it. I realize that you can't do that with everything under the sun, and the more the internet cranks up with the robots, feeding us stuff that lead us into groupthink and all the terrible things that are going on with the internet, the more we are being less likely to use the speed of implementation rule to actually take action on the things that matter, and the more we're being coached to click on things that don't matter, right? This is a real bad trend. And so, yeah, what can we do other than to support the teachers that we like, who are teaching the things that we think that are good? Hit the thumbs up button. As kind of silly as that is, it actually tells YouTube, hey, there's something going on here that's valuable to some people, and then the robots will then start sending more to it. And if you don't like it, well, then that's fine too. But thumbs down doesn't count if you don't leave a comment, then it doesn't mean anything. So at least thumbs up is like, yeah, I'm engaged and so forth. But thumbs down never means anything. It's just tells the robot some stuff, but it doesn't tell the person that you're giving the thumbs down to anything. So they can never improve. They can never do anything different. They're never able to do anything. And it's the same thing for you. If you don't write down what it is that focus and concentration means for you, you'll never have the same understanding of that as you will if you do. And you'll never do research on the focus and concentration techniques that are available for you nearly as well as you could, which means you'll never be able to do the association part as well as you could, and you'll never practice these focus and concentration techniques as well as you could. So take action. If something makes sense to you, do it fast, because speed of implementation rule is working against you. It's working all the time. And so that's a little bit of a rant on that. Let's see. Frank is here. Hey, Anthony, greetings from Hungary. You are a saint, to be honest. Well, thank you for the kind words, Frank. I appreciate that. I'm not sure if I'm going to be sainted, but if that ever happens, well, power to the saint makers. Thank you, though, Frank. I really appreciate that. I love the name Frank Castle, too. When I was a young person and I was writing novels and thought I might be a novelist, which I still write novels and might be a novel. Well, I am a novelist. I have novels available for sale, and I have submitted some short stories recently. But in any case, I had once thought that I would use Frank Castle as my pen name because I just love that name. So I don't know if you're referring to the Punisher, and that's just your online name, or you're actually named Frank Castle. But in any case, I've always had a fondness for that name. Linda says, thought you were born like that. It's just, and you're being sorry, bro. My dad thinks I'm nuts. Well, Linda, I love that too. I'm not sure what these things mean, but PKVS9 says, nice. And Lisa's here. Thanks for the great info. I just got on. I'll watch the replay. Do you recommend any particular methods for young students? I teach third graders, 8 and 9-year-olds. Well, Lisa, thanks for being here, and thanks for the question. Okay, well, the first thing is that I have 2 interviews on the podcast. One is with Imogen Ayers. She's 10 at the time. She's much older now. And with her father. And you really want to listen to that, and you will have an amazing, amazing experience of listening to a young person. And there is another interview with Alicia and her father, and they're talking about this is going back so long now. Hope I remembered the name correctly. But they're with kids, and they both happen to be 10, and they were using these memory techniques with Shakespeare and things like that. So look those up. One is called Tap the Mind of a 10-Year-Old Memory Palace Master, and the other one is something along the lines of memory techniques for kids, and Imogen Ayers is the name. And Kevin Ayers, on that page, her father, he did a TED Talk about memory techniques for kids. I then did another podcast episode just generally about my impressions, things that I've learned. And then I don't know if he's exactly right for that age group, but close. Brad Zupp has an amazing book. I reviewed it on the podcast and on the blog. I've interviewed Brad twice, so look into his stuff. I think that as I teach memory techniques is more for adults. I haven't really had enough exposure to young people to really to speak about it, and I've been asked recently, invited to participate with young people, but my first thing was to just recommend others who actually specialize in those age groups. So another person to look up on my website is the interview with Lynn Kelly, who wrote The Memory Code, and that she does stuff with younger age groups. I'm not sure if it's that young, but certainly there are things there. And I really want to honor you for being interested in helping young people. I'm very interested in helping young people as well. I just don't know exactly how to do it because I do. Well, I've always been a university level instructor from the beginning. I did teach upper high school students in an after school program, which is where I ultimately first seriously taught memory techniques, and they really shot into them rapidly. I mean, within 15 minutes, they were reciting the alphabet backwards using these techniques. So that is possible, but I think that if I go and teach young people, they've got to at least be upper high school. So that's my thing on that. And yeah, but I really appreciate you wanting to reach out to young kids. And if there's a way to adapt what I'm teaching and how I'm teaching it, then I certainly would love to be involved in that for young people. But I just don't really understand their perspectives and needs. So Lisa says, great, thank you. I have two sons in college, so I will tell them about your information as well. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, these are really designed for college level students and professions where the accumulation of knowledge is more directed at students or people who are learners for life who are applying what amounts to a college level focus and concentration on the development of professionalism, and these memory techniques serve that. They're very much about knowledge. So knowledge of languages, knowledge of subject areas like law, medicine, and whatever it is, even just your hobbies, right? If you want to know World War II better and just know that stuff, all the names, all the dates, all the locations, that's the sort of thing that we're talking about. Now, obviously, that applies to high school students, but really, how much do they need to know? I don't know, and what is appropriate to their daily schedules and their brain chemistry and how they're sleeping and eating and technological overwhelm that they may be facing. I'm not entirely sure. So anyway, Linda says, thanks. This is so educational, learning so much. Thanks, Linda, for letting me know. If you're joining us live, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world. Mark is here. Hi, Anthony. Been enjoying the live video. Missed the earlier part and will review. It's great. Thanks. Great to see you here, Mark. By the way, Mark has been in the masterclass for years and recently joined the private mastermind that I have in Facebook. I'm personally a little bit divided on Facebook and the success there and how it really lends itself to the 80-20 rule and so forth. But it's there for people to use, and we do have some amazing things going on there, like the display of memory palaces, the discussion, including your own contributions, Mark. I always appreciate them. They're very insightful, and where we're able to take it to inform ourselves better, to inform our practice better, really, really powerful. And then, of course, the thing with the Facebook group, and I'm very interested in finding out how to make this really pop, is that you get to do rap, right? You get to write about what your position is, what it is you need. If it's focus and concentration, you can write about it. If you need to do some research, then you have people you can talk about your research. I'm obviously going to push you to ask better questions if your questions aren't, magnetic enough. And then you can do the association angle, and then you can do the practice with other people. But you want to be in the master class and the mastermind for that. And so this month there is this special offer at /RAP, magneticmemorymethod.com/RAP. That's down in the description below also. So just click that while it's still open. And if it isn't, then, if you miss it, then that will be redirected somewhere else. Love to see you there. And as I mentioned, if you mention that you were on this YouTube live and you take the RAP offer, then at /RAP, I will send you the Meditation Memory Palace Maximizer guided meditation MP3s. There's 3 of them, and they come in different versions, so you can listen with a background sound or without the background sound. They teach you how to focus and concentrate, walk you through, get you in the state of focus and concentration, and you can then repeat those processes without listening to the recordings at all. People have found them very, very powerful for creating a better mental state, more relaxation, and so we'd be delighted to send those along to you. Julie asks, are you finding new memory techniques all the time, or are you finding new ways to explain the techniques you've already created? You've provided such a vast amount of information that you share. Thanks for that question, Julie, and the answer is both. The answer is both. One of the most amazing things that I see on the internet all the time is that there's nothing new in memory and blah, blah, blah. And those people are just so misguided. They're so out of touch with the memory world. There are new things coming into the world of memory techniques all the time. Now, what does new mean? Well, it means the development and the innovation of what's already there. So it's an evolution. It's always growing. And if you just look at the World Memory Champion records, you can just see it as plain as day. It's right there. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, what Alex Mullen just did, right, is an evolution. And his approach, which I won't get into his approach, I know a fair amount about it. I don't know all the nuts and bolts of everything that he has done there. but it's an innovation. So yes, it exists, but it's new. It's new, and not only is it new, but he's doing it, right? He's new. And so any area of knowledge, expertise, practice that you get into, you always want to be feeding yourself with the new. And while you're in it, you will think and discover new things, new angles, new ways of describing things that are better. Maybe some of those new ones will be more mystifying and confusing, but look at any area of knowledge, right? There's constant growth, there's constant discovery, and there are constantly new people showing up to describe things from their perspective, right? And if they do the rap, right? If they write about it, if they do the research, if they do association to other things in the world, and then they do the practice, then they're going to have new angles. They're going to have new ways of explaining it. So yes, I come up with new things like the pillar technique, which is in the masterclass. This is, as far as I know, new. I remember, it's maybe a little secret fantasy of mine, but I remember talking to Alex before he went to the World Memory Championships the second time, and I was telling him the pillar technique, and you know, then I had to wonder, well, I wonder if he tried it and used it, and that helped him speed up a lot. I doubt it, but it's a little, like I said, a little secret fantasy, but it is something that every person that knows memory techniques, they're like, why didn't I think of that? And I myself thought, why didn't I think of the pillar technique? Why did I think of the pillar technique? Because I practice these techniques all the time. Now, could be there's some dude in 1655 who has a manuscript we haven't found yet who's like, yeah, the pillar technique. He might call it something else. Maybe he even called it the pillar technique. I don't know. There is an effect in memory which is called cryptomnesia. Jung called it that. And basically what cryptomnesia means is that sometimes you encounter things in the world and then you come up with an idea and you think it's your own, and it isn't. You encountered it somewhere before, but you just forgot where you encountered it, and you forget that you encountered it at all. So I don't think that that is the case with a lot of the techniques that I've come up with, but it is always a possibility. And if it is, I'll be the first one to say, yeah, you know what? Maybe that is on page 277 of The Art of Memory by Francis Yates, and it did have this huge effect on me. It planted a seed, a little pearl, or a little piece of sand that grew into a pearl, and I just forgot that it had that source. That's normal. That's part of human evolution. It's why, if you're interested in learning, if you're interested in learning techniques, if you're interested in memory techniques, you study and you keep studying. You get yourself involved in a community of people who are applying these techniques, who are discussing it, because it's going to trigger new avenues of thought, and you're going to just evolve and grow over time, and you're going to do it a lot more quickly than if you try and do it on your own without that community. Although the caveat here is that memory techniques happen in your mind and your mind only, and that's a very good thing, by the way. It's an excellent thing, because what's going to happen for you is that you are going to discover the memory techniques in the only place that they can happen, which is inside of your mind, right? And so, yes, a community is important and it can add something, but it only adds relative to your effort in the journey, because you always got to meet the teacher and the community halfway. Otherwise, who can say? This morning there was an amazing post. Mark, maybe you saw it in our private mastermind group, and just amazing. Like, he talked about struggling with memory palaces before. A little innovation came, and boom, all of a sudden he memorized all the names of a particular business operation or work. And he just described it. Because he's using R.A.P, he wrote it down, and writing it down is going to be super beneficial for him. And just amazing, amazing. He drew his memory palace, posted his memory palace. It's right there. Amazing, and I'm so honored and proud to see that. And every time that people do it, it's a wonderful blessing for them. It's a blessing for me, because you get to see them in the process of learning, but ultimately it's for them because I know that they're going to ultimately have the discoveries that I've had, because they're practicing and they're innovating. So basically that's a long way of saying to your question, Julie, that it's both. I am finding new techniques. The bridging figure technique, I believe, has never existed before in the history of memory techniques. Never have I heard of it, never heard of anything even close to it. But it has its origins, so to speak, in the PAO, But then again, the PAO has its origins in things before that and before that. I mean, if you can look in Bruno and just be like, whoa, geez, ooh. And if you read The Art of Memory by Frances Yates and you actually follow up on her citations, you'll see that, wow, there are so many things that are lost to the sands of time. And one of my goals is to resurrect things from the sands of time. So I have it in my translation spot, but Matteo Ricci's Shikwa Jiva, for example, I'm doing all that I can to resurrect it. I'm just one dude, but I would love to see a special library of all these things put into common language that really is 21st century language, and that people can understand. Because one of the problems with Ad Herennium and even Aristotle's On Memory, which I created a version of, a whole course, Aristotle on Memory, to help unpack the most amazing material that he gives us to think about memory techniques better and to think about memory better. And because I know Plato on memory, which Aristotle is referring to, and then there's things in Plato on memory that he's not referring to, well, I put it in the course. It's in the mastermind. If you would like the masterclass with the mastermind, there's a very special offer right now at magneticmemorymethod.com/W.R.A.P, W-R-A-P. That course, Aristotle on Memory, is in there. And if you haven't gone that deep into it, look, it might not be immediately clear to you what benefit that has, but if you take that course from beginning to end after having taken memory training, and then you go, aha, that's what Aristotle means when he says that, and that he's referring to, or he's rebutting to Plato on that, and then you think about what the implications of what Plato is saying about memory, you're so far ahead of the game. Your practice is informed at such a much higher level, and you're able to just proceed like crazy on a much better uh, foundation. It's incredible what ends up happening for you. So thanks for that question, Julie. And yes, I just will continue to find new things because there's so much to be found and so much that's lost. And I just have to chuckle and be patient every time I read some snotty, snarky comment on my YouTube channel or other people's YouTube channels or on my books or other people's books where people are like, there's nothing new here. They're just so uninformed. There's not only so much new, but there's also so much that is lost that we can still resurrect. We can still translate into contemporary language. And that's one of the projects that I work on. And I'm going to do all that I can as long as I'm alive and kicking, and that I have steam, to go back to something that we were talking about earlier, because I'm pretty aware and have defined using R.A.P what steam is for me, and I'm just going to put out as much as I can. And I started with Aristotle on memory. I want to do a course on Bruno. I want to do definitely the course on Matteo Ricci after I finish the translation. It's complex. Translation is complex. There's at least 3 considerations, which Ezra Pound called melapoia, phanopoia, and logopoia. Won't get into it now, but if you're interested in translation, then those 3 things are at least to be considered. There are probably more considerations about that, but I want to get it right. I want to make sure I understand what Richie's talking about, try out some of his stuff for a sufficient amount of time, which is our P in the R.A.P technique, and really, really make sure I understand it, and then rock and roll and have commentary on that. And Richie is just incredible, unbelievable. So Linda says, kids are very fortunate with the internet. Yes, absolutely. They are very fortunate. But the internet is like a pharmacy, you know? It's got a lot of cures, but a lot of those cures are also poisonous in the wrong dose. And that what constitutes a wrong dose is very, very sensitive. The borders are very sensitive. So I like to think of the internet as a big fat pharmacy that's filled with cures. Not all those cures are for all people, and the border between actually having a therapeutic effect and a toxic effect is a very fine line. So yeah, the internet is great, but it's not all things to all people and not universally cool. Not very good for focus and concentration, that's for sure. That's why we practice focus and concentration offline, develop a skill with focus and concentration, and we move ourselves towards being able to maintain that while we're online by doing things like writing down our goals and then only turning the internet on when we have a goal and we do our work without distractions. Turn off all the oodles and oodles and oodles of tabs so that we're switching back and forth. Stop doing all that switching and just focus on singular tasks as much as possible. One of the problems, of course, is that the internet has lent itself two tasks that require multiple windows open. But then we can just have the discipline of only having as many open as are necessary and try to fit as many of them on the display as possible so that they're all visible, so that we're not actually having to restart the engine every time a whole new screen comes up. Because that whole new screen comes up is actually, and how it causes us to lose focus, is actually very much related to that effect where you leave a room, you need scissors, you leave the room, and then you forget what it was that you wanted. And the reason why that happens is because you're now moving into new temperature, new qualities of light, new sounds, and maybe other things, right? And those three things alone are enough to cause your brain to completely, right? And it knocks out whatever it was that you were doing because all that new stimulation we don't perceive consciously, really, oh man, just knocks it right out of our head. And then we get to the kitchen, we're like, what was I looking for? So the trick for that, I don't know if this works from switching from window to window, but maybe, is you close your fist, and as you go out of the room into the hallway, you say scissors. And then you carry that image of scissors physically, phonically by saying it, and mentally by thinking it. That's going to give you a much better thing. Now you could also go like this, I guess, but I'm not sure that that's as strong as this. So give that a try. Okay, so what's my age? Mr. Metivier says Nightcrawler. Oh, I like Nightcrawler. Well, I am now, I'm 40. I'm loving it. Let's see. Anthony, what do you think about the book How to Concentrate Like Einstein? I've not read it, but I'd rather concentrate like me. And I highly recommend that you learn how to concentrate at the highest level like you. Reach your height. Forget about Einstein's height. What possible use is it to be like Einstein? None. Because Einstein already lived. Now it's time for you to live. So figure out what concentration means for you. Write down what concentration means for you. Get very, very clear about what focus and concentration means for you. Then do research on the techniques that'll help you get it. Then do the association of those techniques to a location, and then practice. That's how you're going to be the best possible version of you. And yeah, maybe that's a great title for a book, and maybe one day I'll have a publisher who insists that I have a title like that, and I won't fight them because I'll just go with the flow. But that's not really a realistic thing to encourage people to do. Why be like anybody else? We already got a Steve Jobs, or we had one. We already have a Bill Gates, or we had one. We already had an Einstein. What about you? Where are you in this equation? Let's how to think like you at the highest possible level. That's something to shoot for. So that's what this video has been all about. That's what the W.R.A.P technique is all about. So if you missed the beginning, please go back and check it out. I think you'll find that it's a very, very powerful process indeed. I'm more interested in how you are going to think like you at the highest possible level. Or if you play bass, how are you going to play bass at the highest possible level as you want to be a bassist? That is super, super important. So give that a try. And I haven't read How to Concentrate Like Einstein, but I might, just to see what that author says. But I'll bet you any money that guy has no idea how Einstein concentrated. And when you look into the biographies of people, you'll find that we often romanticize people a little bit too much. We put qualities on them that are a little bit more exaggerated than necessary. And it's not just that everybody has caca on their knees, but it's just like, why would you want the curse of being anybody else? Read Einstein. Read his biography and so forth. I just read the biography of Lou Reed. Totally, Anthony DeCurtis, I think, is the author. Totally changed my idea of Lou Reed in many, many ways. And one of the amazing outcomes of it is really thinking, what a burden it must have been to be Lou Reed, you know? So how to think like Einstein, I don't know. Like, what a burden that must have been. What a terrible burden it must have been to have been Einstein. What a blessing, of course. But wow, I don't know. I'd rather think like me, and think like me at the highest possible level with the greatest amount of focus, the greatest amount of clarity, all focused at creating the best possible outcomes for the greatest amount of people. And that only happens by, and it's not self-centered, it's not selfish, but it only happens by focusing on the highest possible mental state, physical fitness state, and ability through practicing being an educator, the actual act of educating, which unfortunately comes with its pitfalls as you practice being a better educator, but that's just the way it is. And definitely the weather was a little bit bad, so we couldn't sit outside today, but it's definitely a little bit too hot here in Australia in this office, so maybe I will practice outside some more. But the whole idea is that we got to show up to ourselves. We're all in our own situation, and when you want to learn how to focus and practice, you've got to see yourself in your own situation, which is what this exercise is all about. Please remember it. Please use it. Please come back to it. Linda says, fascinating. Exactly. I think the same. Well, thank you. Julie says, love the scissors idea. I've spent all day looking for my iPhone. I misplace everything. I find my remote control in my purse. I spend a lot of time wondering what I was looking for. Need mindfulness. Yeah, well, some tips around that. There's no foolproof thing here, so I'm not going to give you some system or whatever where you're now going to find everything you set aside. But here's some tips. And I'll share them because being able to find the stuff that you set down helps you with focus and concentration, because you're very unfocused and unconcentrated when you're in a fluster and you're worried about, oh, where did I put that thing? So the first thing is when you put things down, you can try this. Hear an explosion, see an explosion, something dramatic, something big and huge. So you put down the keys and you're like, and then that's where they are. Now that's one technique. But now try putting your keys in the same place every time, or your iPhone in the same place every time. The more that you can do that, it won't happen 100% of the time, but the more that you can do that, the more that it's going to be exactly where it is. And you can have certainty that it is exactly where it's supposed to be by making that explosion, right? Just mentally. Or you can make a sound out loud. And now you're going to have greater certainty that it's there, so you can just forget about it, let it go. And this is really, really powerful. So, I do this all the time because there's something that I misplaced once, and I'll never forget having misplaced it. And I just now, every time that I put it somewhere, I just and make sure that I know where it is, because worrying about where that thing went is not fun, I can tell you. So give that a try. And then the other thing is when you are searching for things, have a thoroughness mindset. So thoroughly search and then let that place go. Search in such a way that you're sure that it's done so that you don't have to search it anymore. Then use some physical body relaxation to relax, chill out, and usually the location will eventually pop into your mind. It'll pop into your mind sooner than later relative to how focused and relaxed and concentrated you are on just letting that process come to you. And the more that you write out where it cannot be because you searched it thoroughly, even if you get a piece of paper and you say, checked 3 drawers, tick, don't have to check it again, then you're clearing mental space for the answer to pop up, if it's going to pop up, or at least you're not fussing around going back to the same location again and again and again with the wish and the hope and the prayer that it's going to somehow materialize there, even though it wasn't. The odd time, of course, it's there and you just didn't see it, but that's why you search it thoroughly in the first place. So hope those tips give you help. Nightcrawler says, what about Mastermind? Have you read it? There are so many books with the word mastermind in it. Please give me some more guidance here. Author name would be useful. Full title, subtitle, year of publication if possible. I'm an old school academic. I deal with details, but I don't know exactly what mastermind is. I know what the Magnetic Memory Method mastermind is, and if you go to magneticmemorymethod.com/W.R.A.P, W-R-A-P, just as it's spelled right there. Got a special offer going on for the next few days, and if you mention that you were on this call, I'll send you the meditation maximizer audios, and these are guided meditations that will help you boost your concentration and your focus. Vinicius, I'm not sure if you want to pronounce that C with a TH, but Vinicius asked me, what is WRAP? Can I go over it? Sure, well, we're live, right? W-R-A-P. Write down what focus and concentration mean to you. Make sure that you focus on, why you need it, where you need it, when you need it, how you need it, and who you are in those roles. when you need it, right? And then do some research for the best techniques for those purposes. Then associate those techniques with locations so that you actually show up and do it. And then practice so you can refine and then go back to writing and describe the process. It's very, very powerful. Give it a try. For more details, go back to the beginning of the live stream. Anthony, thank you for your answer. Do you drink coffee? Not sure how to pronounce your name, actually. Jiao? What do I think about coffee and memory improvement? Basically, yes, I do drink coffee. I love coffee for medicinal purposes more than anything else. And what I like about coffee for memory improvement, look, I haven't done the research yet. I'm starting a research project on coffee and memory, but basically, I think that the most practical answer is the one that makes the most sense, which is that if you're more alert, you're paying attention, and when you pay attention to information, you can encode it using memory techniques. And if you use memory techniques in a way where you're alert to what you're doing, then you're going to encode better, and then those are going to get into long-term memory better. So is there a special chemical thing in coffee? I haven't read anything about it that is convincing, although in raw cacao there does appear to be. Not in chocolate as such, but in raw cacao. And that's a very important distinction because the memory-friendly chemicals in chocolate, when they're heated up, they disappear very, very quickly. But in raw cacao, you get those benefits much, much, much better. Julie says, great ideas, thank you. Arda is here. Hi, Arda. Is this live stream going to be in your channel? It might be, but sometimes I take them away, depending. So if you want to watch the replay, watch as soon as possible. Speed of implementation, right? Before you forget. Benicia says, thank you very much. Nightcrawler says, Maria Konnikova. I don't know the name, but feel free to post a link to it if you'd like me to check it out later. I may do something about it if it's really good. Tao says, can meditation help us increase concentration? Absolutely. It is one of the best ways to increase your concentration. It is by far the ultimate technique. But you need to do your research, which is what is important here. We talked about this earlier on this live. Not all meditation works equally for all people. There are different forms of meditation, and you really, really need to understand that meditation is a journey, it's an adventure. You get into it, you explore different things. The more open you are to exploring different things, the more you'll settle on what's going to work for you. And then don't put a door on it and say, well, that's it, I got it. Because I made that mistake, and I did a form of meditation that was not as optimal as it could have been for many, many years. And it did a lot of good stuff, but it actually locked me into the pituitary gland much more than necessary, it turns out. And by shifting, by doing more research, and actually doing some writing around it as well. I read Happiness Beyond Thought by Gary Weber, and it changed everything. And thanks to a guy named Ben who met me here in Brisbane, he recommended that book, and it was just mind-blowing. So, and I wasn't really open to things like yoga or movement meditation. I was into movement meditation, but specifically like stretching and all that sort of stuff. But the scientific evidence was just too huge to ignore, and so I did it, and it just changed everything and got me out of this area and more into this area, processing area, and started to have persistent non-symbolic experience, which is the highest form of concentration and focus I've ever had. And then of course that bleeds itself over into everyday life, and so you're much more focused and concentrated, and you're observant of the things that cause you to lose focus in conversation. And that's super, super powerful to do. So John Paul says, I'm from Brazil. My name is difficult to spell in English. Well, I don't know if it's difficult to spell, but with some memory techniques, we can figure that out pretty easily. But just call me John Paul, and it's cool. Great, but I still want to know how to pronounce that at some point. I hope I can. Nightcrawler says, please make some animated videos on your work. Kids like me are more receptive to those. Great. You know, there's other memory improvement channels to watch as well. I'm not sure that I'll be doing some animations, but do look around, because there are some people who do animations. I really want to help people figure out how to do this in their minds, regardless of whether they're visual or they're auditory or they're kinesthetic or they have some other modes. I don't care if you have aphantasia or any of these other issues. Really want to get you to do it in your mind, and I'm not sure that animations are actually the path to that. for the kind of people that, I can test, I can try. I'm really willing and open to working with animators, and we're now doing things that are going to improve everything across the board. And animation may be part of it, but my prediction is that it's not going to help people any more than actually just doing what it takes to get you to use these memory techniques in the traditional fashion that works for thousands of years, which is writing about them, talking about them, encouraging you to try. If animation encourages more people to try, so far, I'm not sure that I see evidence of that happening, but what is happening is that when people just put their skepticism aside, or at least use their skepticism as a power to drive them to try to prove mnemonics wrong, to try and prove the central principles of the memory palace wrong, they will always succeed because you cannot fail. But making things visual will only actually discourage people, or it will have the effect of discouraging people who don't feel visually creative, because they'll see all these pictures and they'll think, oh, I have to reproduce that in my mind. I have to reproduce HTTV in my mind, and that's not true. You don't even have to see pictures in your mind at all. You can think purely in concepts of space, purely in concepts of movement, purely in concepts of all kinds of things, and still use memory techniques and still improve your focus and concentration while you're doing it. John Paul asks, have you won any memory championships? How do you become interested in memory development? Those are stories I've told other places, so please, you want to check out my interview with Dave Farrell to hear about my memory competition experiences. And in terms of memory development, there is the story of how to learn and memorize German vocabulary on my podcast, which you can listen to, and that will tell you the whole story. So that is all there for you. Oh, Harvinder's here. Hi, Harvinder. Always great to see you. I have received your email. I'll catch up with that soon. Harvinder is in the mastermind and a really great producer of memory palaces. Always really great to see your memory palaces and your descriptions of what you're doing. And so glad you're here. How are you doing? I'm from Delhi, India. I missed the W.R.A.P technique. Did I miss this part? Yeah, well, we'll be doing a formal training on it in the masterclass, so that you'll get that in the near future. But we're just doing a sort of general take. It's to write down what kind of what focus and concentration means for you, then do some research around the different options. In the full training, I will have all kinds of research links for you. I'm going to share with you my research and describe it. So you'll be getting that, Harvinder, and everybody here who's already in the masterclass. And then you associate space with those places, and then you practice. And then while you're practicing, you go back to W and you write. You write about the process so that you're able to externalize it and have a lot more success. So stay tuned for that, and that's going to be very, very good. I've got an editor on there, and it's just great. We're actually shooting now a bunch of videos, and everything is getting really good with the new video editor. Really excited. But about having animations again, I'm just not sure that that's actually the path to helping people. The path is to help them see in their minds that they don't have to see in their minds, because so many people are not using these memory techniques because they think they're visual. Visuality is just part of the magnetic modes. Not all of them. In fact, it's only scratching the surface. So, John Paul says, how does your mastermind work? Well, it works very nicely. Thanks. Basically, it is a special area that has recorded coaching calls with people who have given their permission to have the recording session shared with other students who are not able to have a one-on-one with me for whatever reason, but they can have access to recorded sessions if they are in the mastermind. And that's been very helpful for many people. And then it has some access to research materials that you can use for your own study. It has courses like Aristotle on Memory that dive deep into some of the history of the memory techniques, and that's being expanded with more material that will be exclusive to there. There's the secret Facebook group that is not open to the public that you can see the memory palaces of other students, engage with them. It's a much faster way of engagement. If you're not into Facebook, then it's not that useful. There is a caveat there, which is that it's on Facebook, and we may move it to a private forum at some point in the future, or maybe there's another technology for doing that, but it's asynchronous, and there's just a lot of memory palaces in there and discussion. If you have really targeted questions, then you get good answers. If your question needs improvement, then you get guidance on how to make the question better so that you can get better answers. And it's just it's a boot camp training. And I think that well, I certainly have a lot of fun. And then there's a monthly video that goes out to you, and that video takes something to the next level that is most likely a memory technique that you've never heard of before, and it's taken apart and it's explained, and then you're able to apply it to your own memory practice. And we now have 3 years of material in there that you have access to just by having access to it. And now we're in the 4th year of putting together training for people on a monthly basis, and it's just an absolute wealth of backup stuff. Is it necessary? No, the masterclass covers everything. This is additional training for the really serious people who just want this, and they understand that this is a lifelong journey, that there's always more to learn, more to explore, more to understand, and I really have so much fun with all levels of people who want memory techniques. But the mastermind is that special, extra, exclusive area for more hands-on attention and discussion and deeper stuff. So it almost only makes sense to you if you're serious enough to go through the masterclass, and many people are. So it's great, and it's a passion thing, and we are going to continue to grow it, make it the most valuable resource on the planet for memory techniques, and just keep on going for as long as humanly possible until I drop dead. I want to be building up all of these additional resources for those who want them and need them and benefit from them, and that's what that is. If you have any more questions about it, really the best thing to do is just dive in and give it a try. And so the particular offer this month is at magneticmemorymethod.com/WRAP, W-R-A-P, magneticmemorymethod.com/WRAP, and you get information about that, and you can check it out for yourself. Shoot me an email that you were on this call. You'll also get the meditation maximizer MP3s. These are guided meditations that walk you through being more creative, being more focused, more concentrated, understanding spatial memory at a higher level, understanding how to create memory palaces in your mind, no matter where you're at now. If you want to explore being more visual, then we talk about that. If you want to get better at just manipulating information in your mind and having the ability to focus and concentrate on the actual practice of memory techniques and mnemonics, that's what we go through on these audios, and very powerful resource for you. Tao says, I'm a beginner. I'm interested in method of Loki. I also know about magnetic memory method. It is really good. Is magnetic memory method built from method of Loki? What is the difference between them? The method of Loki, Loci, many people pronounce it in many different ways. It is the subject of so much confusion and frustration for so many people, so I've gotten rid of that term altogether, and I talk about magnetic stations. Now, what's the difference? Well, magnetic stations are only in memory palaces. Loki, you know, Bob's your uncle and the world's your oyster. There's no guidance around that. Or there's an abundance of guidance that has no particular method, no means of developing a proper, focused, constructed strategy for using memory palaces quickly, efficiently, effectively, and for what memory palaces are actually for. So many people think that memory palaces are just for set and forget information. No, memory palaces are an alternative to rote. They're an alternative means of doing what I call recall rehearsal. And the more that your magnetic stations are properly constructed, properly created, properly placed in a well-formed memory palace that has all of the proper considerations that you need to keep in mind, so you don't get memory palace scarcity, so that you don't get memory palace claustrophobia, so you don't suffer from ghosting or the ugly sister effect. All of these things have been thought through to the nth degree, so that when you take the training, you're going to create memory palaces that work so much better for what memory palaces are for, which is getting long-term information or getting information and massive amounts of information into long-term memory quickly. So you can look at things once. I'm learning Chinese and I just encode once, and yeah, sometimes you make a little bit of an error. Pronunciation is something I focus on later after the initial encoding is correct. But refinement is just part of the game in language learning. Refinement is the game, period. But if you don't have a strong foundation in the first place, then you end up wasting a whole bunch of time fixing the foundations. So this is what is very, very different in the magnetic memory method. It's what gets the people results, is that they submit to this process, they understand it for what it is, which is you understanding how these things work in the first place and why that these rules that I have put around it are so fundamental. You understand that the rules set you free to actually use your memory at the highest possible level, getting the highest possible outcome, and then you're free to just use this technique for the rest of your life, and it applies to any body of information, any knowledge. It applies to impromptu use at parties. It applies everywhere in all occasions, but you need to know it in order to apply it in that way. So it's not the method of Loki. It is if you had to do some sort of mathematical computation, it's the method of Loki times 1,000 plus a completely 21st century approach to all the good stuff in memory techniques applied to a singular focus on the foundations and starting from the foundations and building up. If you are struggling with what you've learned from other books, if you're struggling with what you've learned from other courses, if someone emailed me the other day, they said, why should I join the masterclass during this promotion when I can just get all this stuff for free? Well, the reality is that you can't get anything for free. There is no free. This is the foolish myth of the internet. First of all, you gotta have electricity, you gotta have a laptop or a computer, you gotta have all of these sorts of tools, these things that are necessary. They're not free. And even if you go to the library, well, somebody's paying taxes to run that library. It's not free. Then you have to put the time and the energy into things, and neither of those things are free. Those are resources that you have to spend on things. So if you like to go on the internet and spend hours and hours and hours of time fuddy-duddying through forum posts and people arguing over this and that, what's the best, or giving you links all over the place and misinformation and so forth, power to you. Look, there's all kinds of people who do amazing things with memory techniques who don't take my training. That's not the question. But if you want a focused curriculum that takes you through how to apply this in the highest possible level, then you've got it. I'm a university professor, 10 years structuring courses. Yes, there's a little bit of an issue in terms of how the detail, the depth of discussion may make you think, well, this is a little bit repetitive and so forth. But here's how you take a course. You get out a memory journal, which I teach you how to create, and you then start to follow the recommendations. And if something you've heard it before and it's a little bit repetitive, then you just go, oh yeah, I heard that. And then you go to the next part, right? We need repetition in life. There's a reason why teachers repeat things, and that's to make sure that you got it, because you know that you need to hear things at least 7 times. And apparently this is 7 times to take action on them. And apparently this number has gone up in the age of the internet, where everyone's twitchy and not really acting rationally based on a lot of stuff, right? And it's becoming more evident, and apparently Facebook is making changes and yada yada, but these things are all questionable. But we know that we need some repetition. So if there's a fault to the masterclass, it's that I tend to repeat things about 7 times. And the reason why is because that's what is going to get the most people to take the most action and actually do things. And so there is that fault. But other than that, it's a structured curriculum that takes you through in the master plan the foundations of what a memory palace is, why you need to master this first so that you have spatial memory working on your side, which is the biggest free memory resource that the most people have. And then from there, how you're going to create proper journeys in proper memory palaces on the basis of understanding this properly, so that you don't have problems later. And then you're going to apply this once you know this, and once you know recall rehearsal and why it works, why you need to do it, and how it works, and what the steps are to using it properly, and knowing the realistic ways that it needs to change in different contexts. Then you're going to go and take that knowledge and you're going to learn how to use it for learning a language, or you're going to learn it for math, or you're going to learn it for names, or you're going to use it and learn it how to apply to whatever it is, poetry, song lyrics, jokes, etc. This is covered, and it's covered in detail, and it's covered in a way that leaves no stone unturned. Every stone is overturned. We look underneath it. A lot of that turning over all the stones, making sure everything is covered, takes place in the FAQ section. So people have really good, intelligent questions that show that they are actually using these techniques. They hit a wall, then I make a tailor-made video. Sometimes those videos are 10 minutes, sometimes they're 15 minutes, sometimes they're 50 minutes to cover that topic. Do you have to watch every single one of them? No, but chances are you're going to have questions, and then you can go to that FAQ section and go, that matches my question, right? It's all there, and it's a resource that's there. And by the way, there's a study guide in there, so you don't have to figure it all out on your own. It's a structured curriculum, and it's a structured curriculum that has a bit of a choose your own adventure nature, because that's the reality of memory techniques. You can't be handheld through every single step of the way. It's just not realistic. So I give you the foundations. I suggest you dive right into the master plan and then apply to the other things that you might want to learn. If it's a language, go to the language course. If it's wanting to memorize poems or speeches or anything that's verbatim, go to that course. I think I might come up with a different title for it, how to memorize verbatim text or something like that. Try and think of something sexy, but in any case, it's there. That's what the masterclass is. And then if you want the mastermind, which is more monthly stuff that goes deeper and deeper into other topics and some additional study material, extracurricular activities and so forth, and group activities and whatnot, well, that's there as well. Nightcaller says, I agree, like Joker from Batman says, if you're good at something, don't do it for free or you lose your value. Yeah, well, it's not only that, but it's just never free. You're investing your time and your energy, always. That's the bigger cost, and that's the bigger payoff, because you make this little small financial investment, and then what ends up happening is that you get it all back in droves because you never have to retake exams. You get a raise at your job because you actually show some competence for once, and you do amazing things. You pass your exams faster. You do it with confidence, with grace, with style, and you have time to develop style, and you're getting time back in droves. So what you're really investing is time and energy. And if you want to invest your time and energy in something that involves creating your own curriculum, power to you. But if you want someone who has a realistic guide that's created it for you based on having to deal with depression, clinical depression, brain fog from antidepressants and so forth, and had to figure this out or else, end up becoming a homeless person and so forth, then you've got the training right there. It's right there for you. And it's all based on legitimately using this to get out of a rut, get it done fast, because there were looming deadlines, and I had to be a master of a body of knowledge and be able to sit in front of examination committees and produce knowledge from thin air out of my mind in the worst possible physical condition because I was not feeling well. That is what this training will do. And you don't have to be having those problems in order to benefit from it, but that's the core pain here, and that's what it helped me solve and do it fast and with competence. And then going to Germany, well, I got to learn German, so what am I going to do? Oh, well, memory palaces. And then I just figured out the fastest and most likely way that this is going to give a boost to fluency in German so I can read, write, speak, and listen to it as quickly as possible and start giving lectures in it, right? So that's what that course is all about. And I was feeling a lot better, but I still didn't have the greatest lifestyle at the time. I was in Germany for the first time. You can drink beer on the street. So, I stacked some chips against myself, but didn't hurt my memory at all because I had these techniques. So that's what this is all about. It's about conquering human forgetfulness and conquering it in a way that's quick, fast, easy, efficient, effective, and fun. That's the most important thing. So I'm going to catch up quickly with these last comments, and I really enjoyed talking with you all. And really the whole thing here is that this is definitely for you if you're a serious student who likes to learn and you like to apply. And you are going to be asked to write down what your goals are. You're going to be asked to actually implement, you're going to be asked to apply, and you're going to be asked to practice. And if that's for you and you want a structured curriculum, then there is a special offer right now at magneticmemorymethod.com/WRAP. Grab that before that it ends. Let me know you were on this live, and then you will get the we'll cross-index and do a little homework test or whatever. Not a homework test, but a test to see that that this is legit. And then you will get also, in addition to that, the meditation Memory Palace Maximizer concentration guided meditations. And let's see here. John Paul says there's so many poor information products about memory improvement. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that just put out stuff. You can tell that they don't use memory techniques in daily life. You can tell. And that's really sad. Margaret says, I intend to purchase the memory program. Is it designed to improve memory, creativity, and focus? Also looking to develop my critical thinking and reasoning skills, trying to be more reflective and ask deeper questions. Also love Edward de Bono 6 hats technique. Very briefly, memory techniques are after meditation or with meditation. They are the ultimate path to greater focus and concentration. Not only because you practice focus using the memory techniques, but you're able to replicate that focus when you're recalling information, and it creates so much confidence. It boosts your mental feelings about yourself, and that in itself boosts your clarity and your focus. Confidence is everything. You just got to do the doing, which is the DOC principle of the magnetic memory method. Doing is the origin of confidence. It's also the origin of creativity. It's the origin of courage. It's the origin of control. And so you get to control your focus and your concentration at a much better level. And then the more you know, the better questions you can ask, right? Because you have more perspective, more angles, more things to talk about. So hope that helps. I've got to go. The battery here is running out, and lunch is ready, and I really enjoyed this. I appreciate being with you all today. This is a great session, and definitely check out the replay if you like. Sometimes I do remove these replays, so do it sooner than later, just in case. John Paul says, thank you, sir. Thank you for being here, John Paul. Excellent questions. If you don't know the WRAP technique by now, go back and watch that replay. I'm not saying it is going to disappear, but it might. And you never know. YouTube might just collapse and then it's gone. So sooner than later, we covered it very, very quickly as possible at the beginning. So 10, 15 minutes will do. And if you want to take advantage of this offer, magneticmemorymethod.com/WRAP. Hope to hear from you in email that you were on this live session, and we will get you those meditation maximizer audios. Philip says, thank you, Anthony, for your great advice. You're welcome, Philip. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful beginning to your week. For me, it's Monday. I know that for many of you, it's still Sunday. And I appreciate everybody who filled out the survey that I sent out around which live you would like to have first. And so this was the overwhelming majority wanted this one, but we might do the other ones as well. And in general, the more that you feed me, the more that I can tailor make and craft these things to be a little bit more useful for you. And at the end of the day, if you're interested in getting some structured training, we will do that. John Paul says, can you play guitar right now? No, I got to go. But there's videos of me on YouTube playing bass. There's a video of me playing the Magnetic Memory Method podcast theme song. So you can check that out, and maybe one day we'll do a live with some bass or guitar. Max says, wir sehen uns. Vielen Dank und ich freue mich darauf. Okay, so magneticmemorymethod.com/WRAP for that special offer. Email me if you were on this live. Make sure that you get you those meditation maximizer audios, and they are guided meditations that are for increasing your focus and your clarity for using memory techniques. And really, really, really look forward to getting those to you. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed it, and really appreciate all the participation. And, let's make this grow. Let's get this going for all people around the world. Every like helps, every comment helps, and everything helps. This is the mnemonics renaissance. We are in a bit of a battle against digital amnesia, and the more that we are using these memory techniques organically in our own minds, the better we're able to actually use technology. So it's just a plus, 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 plus. Thanks, everybody. Come visit me at magneticmemorymethod.com/WRAP for this particular offer, or just generally, magneticmemorymethod.com. And we'll see you soon. And until then, keep yourself magnetic. Bye-bye.